We're going to discuss page 47. It's section 7, the online configuration. And anytime you're going to use one of these things, I would be willing to bet that probably 85% of the time you'll be using it online. There is a difference between what we call an online configuration and an offline configuration, which we will hit here in just a second. But on page 47, there is basically a step through where they discuss the online configuration. There, about half the page, it says to configure the transmitter online, which we're dealing with a smart transmitter and a Hart communicator. To configure the transmitter online, be sure that it is installed in a loop and connected to a suitable power supply, as described in section 3, startup and commissioning. Once you connect the Model 268 as shown in figure 2.3, turn the Model 268 by pressing the on-off key. Pretty simple. Model 268 conducts a self-test every time it's turned on. After that test is complete, it checks to see whether or not it is connected to a Rosemount transmitter. And you'll notice whether or not it is communicating successfully. There'll be a heart that will pop up in the top right hand side of the window. And that heart it'll flash occasionally to tell you that you are actually communicating with some device. If a transmitter is detected, the Model 268 briefly displays the transmitter model and tag number if applicable. So it'll tell you if it's communicating that it found that device, and it's going to pull in a little bit of information from it, and it'll display it. And it shows that over on page 47 on the left-hand column. All configuration data in the transmitter is automatically copied to the working register of the 268. The 268 is the model number of handhelds that we have. I think we've got 268s here in the classroom. So that model number is what we're using when we tie into smart transmitters that we have in labs. This means that the changes you make in the 268 are not made in the transmitter until you send them using the send data button, the send data command. There is this in itself will cause issues for at least 3 students. You will make a change, and then you will be curious why your transmitter is not responding, why it hasn't updated, and it's simply because you haven't hit the send data command. Be aware of that, because it's there, and if you skip it, it will not try to send that information to the transmitter. It mentions there, if this message or any other message appears, check the connections and press retry. And what they're referencing is on the left hand side it says warning, transmitter 268 not in communication. Would you like to retry? So there's that option there. There's a hot button for retry that you can click, and it will try to reestablish communications. The Model 268 asks whether you want to save transmitter data in the Model 268. Press save, F2. This is important. This is where we start veering into offline versus online configuration, and these things are super handy. So we'll get into that in just a second on the next page. The Model 268 will tell you it will tell you to wait while the data is being saved. So if you were to hit save, it's going to tell you to wait, and then the top level function screen will appear. The top level function screen provides access to 3 primary functions of that specific transmitter. Okay, let's look over on page 48. If you'll, the options there really are offline, change output, transmitter info, and send data. So those are the 4 pieces that you're really going to start to utilize when you're dealing with one of these transmitters. Let's talk about the offline data for a second. If I were to, you could theoretically do something like this. You could be in the office, in the workshop, wherever your location is, where you've got Hart communicators, and you're going to have to go out in the field in the plant somewhere, or drive to a location where there's a transmitter and replace one. You could do this a number of ways. You could go out there to that site that you're going to travel to, pull the bad transmitter, put a new transmitter in, and configure it online right there. You could also go in and build a file offline. So basically get all the data that is going to be in that new transmitter that you're going to install, and put all that data in there. Its range of 4 to 20 milliamps, its pressure reading of 0 to 1,000 inches of water, and save all this data. Save the name of that device and the location of where it's installed. And there's some transmitter info that is down about midways in the page here. It's basically, this allows you to change the transmitter information that does not affect output. The tag or the name of it, the descriptor of the device, a message, a date, integral flange type, material flange, O-ring. All these are options that you can fill out when you save one of these files. And let's say you go through some lengthy process to save these files in the office. You can show up on the job site with that Hart communicator and that new device that has no information in it whatsoever. Pull the old one out, the bad one out, and install the new one. Plug it in, get connected to it, and then you can download all that information from the handheld into that device. So you could have used it to basically download a non-working controller, brand new out of the box. I'm sorry, not controller, but a brand new transmitter out of the box, and have it running just like the one that was pulled out, that was faulty for years and years of service. So that is an option of offline configuration, and it mentions that there on page 48. It says offline data. They abbreviate it OFLN. Offline data provides access to the offline memory and allows you to save or recall configuration data. The second option there is change output. Allows you to change the output related information. You can the output units to appear. So if you wanted to change the way that the output looks, let's say that you wanted to change it from degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit, or inches of water to PSI, or whatever the case may be. There's an opportunity for you there to change that output, that display. There's 4 to 20 milliamp set point, so you could rearrange it. What if I was going to use 0 to 20 milliamps instead of 4 to 20 milliamps? Then you could rearrange that output. There's some linear and square root output functions that you can change. So if you're going to start getting into using flows, which is some stuff that Mr. Piney will discuss with you guys further, I believe, about some square root functions. And then there's some dampening, which is basically taking those signals and wanting to maybe not look at one end and the other because it's a little bit noisy. We could slow some of that stuff down by changing the output configuration. Of course, we briefly touched on transmitter info there. And then, of course, down towards the bottom it says send data. F4 allows you to send the contents of the working register to the transmitter. And there is a remember right underneath that. Whenever you enter configuration data into the 268, it is stored in the 268's working register. That's important. You need to know that. That's going to probably show up on test somewhere. And it is not sent directly to the transmitter. During configuration, sending data to the transmitter memory always requires the send data command. Become familiar with the steps required to send data. They will be used often. All right, if you guys got any questions, send me some emails this week. The next time that we meet, or you get a video, which I'll probably drop a video midweek. This week we're going to go over some other functionality of the Hart communicators, and send me an email if you got questions, and then look at your Moodle for another video this week. Thanks guys, bye.